response. I'm glad to be in here with God and with you. Let's turn to the Bible. In the Bible, to an Old Testament passage, Isaiah chapter number 6. I didn't check the stats on this. This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've preached from this text. This is a sermon that God put on my heart. This is a different message that God's put on my heart for this text. But you cannot exhaust the Bible out in 12 years. If I had preached 50 sermons from this text rather than 5, I still couldn't exhaust it. I'm glad you're here today. Let's look and see what God has to say to us in looking up. So let's look at this great prophet of the Old Testament, this prophet Isaiah. Isaiah chapter number 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah writes in chapter 6 and verse 1, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And above it stood the seraphims. These are angels, angelic beings. Each one had 6 wings. With 20 he covered his face, and with 20 he covered his feet, and with 20 did fly. Now, look up at me just a moment, then we'll get right back in the text. So he had 6 wings. He's using 2 to fly. 2 he's covering his lower body. 2 he's covering his eyes. That's what it means in 20. He's got 2 wings covering, 2 wings with flying, and 2 wings covering his eyes. And his face, that is. Verse 3, and one cried unto another, that is the seraphim, these angelic beings, and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Now remember, this is a vision that God is giving Isaiah, but it is as real can be. Verse 5, then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for mine eyes have seen the King. Now, what king is he talking about? Because in verse 1, he's talking about his King Uzziah that's died, but notice who this king is. My eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Verse number 6. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. That's so important when you and I pray, to make sure we get our sins forgiven. Christians, sinners, all of us, we need constantly to pray. Now, if you've never prayed that prayer this morning, it'd be a good time for you to pray it. Ask God to forgive you and cleanse you. Verse 8, also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Now there God refers to himself as the Trinity. There is the Father. Second person of the Trinity is God the Son. That's whom Isaiah is getting a vision of. He's getting a vision of the King of all glory. And then there's God the Holy Ghost. Then said I, Isaiah said, Here am I. Send me. Verse 9, just the first 4 words. Then he said, Go. Look up. What a time in Israel's history this Bible gives us the actual event. Of a king of Judah, he's the 10th king in the reign of Judah's history. Remember, at this time, Israel, that is Palestine, the people of God had been divided into 2 parts. The lower 2 kingdoms of Judah, the lower 2 kingdoms of Judah and Benjamin. That was the lower part. That's this Judah called Judah. And then the northern part of the 10 tribes, that been separated. And here, this King Uzziah, he has been on the throne. he is the 10th king, and he's a good king. If you will notice, when you put together the tally of the kings of the north of Israel, the northern part, plus the kings of Judah, many times the Bible would say, and they did that which was evil in the eyes of God, and they were evil, and they did that which displeased God. But this is not one of those kings. This is an exception to the kings. This Uzziah is a man who walked with God. This man Uzziah was not perfect, but he restored the true worship of a holy God, the God of Jacob, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham. He restored that kind of worship. So this was good. He had a prophet in his earlier days by the name of Zechariah. Zechariah would come in and preach to Uzziah. He would say, "Oh, King, we thank God for you, but King, there is one above you, who's the King of the universe. He is the God of the Lord of hosts. Look to him, receive wisdom." I'll tell you, that resonated in his heart. Never underestimate the prayers of your local leaders, your local officials, nor your state officials, nor all of the leaders in Washington, D.C. We are commanded by the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans to pray for those in authority over you. Why? Because God is over all. God is the greatest power of all, and we can look to him. And Zechariah, he touched the heart of Uzziah and encouraged him to get his eyes on the leadership of a holy God. That's what most of the kings had forgotten to do, and they had failed to look to God. And now the nation of Israel just wandering about, no longer down and wandering in the wilderness. They were an instituted, organized nation, and yet they were just wandering there in the promised land, not getting God's will done. Here comes Uzziah. He's on the throne for 52 years. Friend, that's significant. 52 years, 5 decades. A little better than half a century. And all of a sudden, this new leader, this good king, who's now had a good time, year after year, decade after decade, of getting the people to think about the goodness of God. And now after Zechariah here, along with Zechariah, and then after Zechariah, here's Isaiah, and he too comes along, and he's issuing the challenge to Uzziah. Don't you let up, Uzziah. Seek God. Don't let up. Let's keep seeking God. Let's be a nation that looks to God. And Uzziah did. And because Uzziah did, God blessed the nation of Israel. Blessed them with success. That is, geopolitical success. They had greater armies of greater nations about them, but they had already seen God bless them in wonderful ways. They had success. Their economy was booming again. They had national success. They had power. They were able to defeat most of their enemies, and those that couldn't, God promised he would help them. And by the time of Isaiah and Uzziah, God had demonstrated his great arm of power was not slack. This was also a time of great wealth. The average family in Israel was doing a little better, and the finances of the nation were at a place they hadn't been since King Solomon. All because of this good king. He restored national prominence among all the nations. There was now a nationalism and a pride, a patriotism that was on the rise, and it had now come to its apex and climax, and all of the people of Israel were looking at their king, because it was Uzziah and Uzziah alone, listening to these two preachers, Zechariah and Isaiah. It was this king that had now built the nation up, and now Israel could feel that self-gratitude and that longing that God would just continue Uzziah's reign, because Uzziah had been used to make a great blessing in the nation. And all the people going about Israel, they were no longer displaced and disappointed. They were just thrilled to be a Jew and to serve God. technology, with all the things that we have going for us, we think about us as earlier days, you and I do. We think about how when we were young, we were going to go to church, listen to a preacher stand in the pulpit, preach the Word of God. Now we're older, kind of more self-sufficient, and we think, do I really need to go to church and hear a preacher get up there and preach, maybe sweat a little bit, raise his voice? Do I really need that anymore? Well, I don't tell you, it paid off then, and it'll pay off now. Whenever you get a little discouraged, well, if I got to go, it's another Sunday. Am I going to go back and hear him preach, or should I just take a vacation from Sunday? Look, don't take a vacation. Don't take a vacation from church, because that's you trying to take a vacation from God. God's got some good things for you. Now, here is the King Uzziah. He's ushered in the lost prominence. He's brought in the prestige back to Israel that they had lost. And even Isaiah himself had a heart swell with national pride and with spiritual strength, all because that king had listened to the preaching and led that nation back in the pathways of righteousness and godliness. But do you see what this text says? I want you to look at the turning event of history in just one verse of Isaiah chapter number 6 and verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died. I mean, he could have written anything but that. He could have said anything but that. Not our King Uzziah. We depend upon him. We need him. Look what he's done for us. It's wonderful now to be a Jew. It's wonderful now to be an Israelite. All because of that man. And you're telling me he's dead? He's gone? He's left? It's over? In the year that King Uzziah died. Now I'll tell you what happened when he died. Those people had embodied into that man, that King Uzziah, their hope for tomorrow, their livelihood, their expectation of better days, their anticipation of what they had that would bring them a joy-filled life and a purposeful days. But he's dead. And all of a sudden, all the people in Israel, they're inundated, they're overcome with disappointment. Because in that king, who's now dead, gone, was their hopes, their anticipation of better days, their expectation of maintaining what they have as hope. And in this preacher himself, Isaiah, he had a downcast look because the person that he held responsible for turning everything around and making life a pleasure and a joy was now gone. And disappointment filled his mind and filled his heart. And this is why this text speaks to your heart and to mine. Because you and I will have, throughout of our lives, we're going to have a few significant people that will leave us before we leave this earth. There are going to be some notable deaths. You've experienced them. I've experienced it when I lost my mother. 30 years this coming December. I know what it is to feel like a young preacher by her bed praying, God, can you not help her? Can you heal her? And until God gave me the peace that it was her time to go, I was thinking, how in the world can this happen? I don't want to lose her. You and I will have a life that we will somehow put the pivotal markings of major events in our calendar, and sometimes they
are circumventing and highlighted by whom we have loved the most that has died. And that is what happened to Isaiah in the year that King Uzziah died. His dreams of a continued national promise, they were dashed. He was disappointed. He was disappointed in the death of his king. He was disappointed in himself. He was disappointed even with God, because it was God's will to move Uzziah from this earth unto his reward. And Isaiah the prophet was disappointed with God.
You and I have been there. To where whether it was loss of the person you dearly loved, of the loss of a dream that you've held on for decades, and you finally realize that dream's not coming about. I really thought that was going to be my life. I really thought that's how my life would end. It's gone. And the reality census comes in, and you realize things aren't going to be the way you really thought you could live, in a way that to glorify God even.
But that's not how your life should be summarized. You lived, you loved, you dreamed, you hoped.
It's gone. Oh no. I'm going to tell you, if Satan has any way of influencing how your life's going to be written, oh, that's how you live. You live.
He says, I got my eyes on the Lord. His eyes were on his problem. His eyes and their downcast look caused him to be absolutely disappointed with God and with life and himself.
And I preach this message to you. And you and I have gone through some difficult times. But just because you and I have gone through difficult times, you hear this sermon, it's not so, oh, we can pack all our problems and put them away. Oh, no. Life is jettisoned and marked with sporadic events that bring crushing into our heart. You get over one, in a few years you're going to have another major. Here's what God is saying about Isaiah. Isaiah had his eyes on his problems. You and I, it's only natural to look at our problems. But sometimes we get so focused that our look and our gaze becomes so focused with tunnel vision that we can't see anything else. We can't see anything to the right or to the left. We can't see anything above. And God is saying, look up to me. Look up. Isaiah's looking at his problems. And here's the holy God. And here's what Isaiah said. He said, I saw God. How did he describe God? Notice quickly. How did he describe God?
He said, I saw him sitting. Saw him sitting. That's important for Isaiah to notice. Because while Isaiah is walking the floors, looking at his problems, Isaiah can't do anything but worry. You and I have been there. You may have been there last night, where all you can do is walk the floors and worry. Maybe nobody knows about what you're going through, but you're worrying. But you need to see, you need to look up. There is a God this morning who is in control, with such control, he's sitting. That is a sign of absolute authority and a sign of repose, a sign of no worry. Can you imagine how frustrating it would be if you and I prayed to a God this morning and he was biting his fingernails and he was worried about how he was going to help you get out of this problem? God never bites his fingernails. All you and I have got to do is look up. Quit looking at your problem long enough to look at him. He's sitting. He's not worried about a thing. And then the Bible says he's not only sitting, he's sitting on a throne. Now there are thrones in all this world. Carol and I got to see a few of the smaller historical thrones that have been important in England's history, and they're kind of impressive. But I will tell you, there is no throne like the throne of Almighty God. His throne is founded and positioned in a sea of gold. Why, there's a rainbow that's with the brilliant color of emerald that's blasting out through the heavens above. And there are diadems and glorious jewels of heaven that sparkle with the endless eternal glory of a holy God. He's sitting on that kind of a throne. I think you and I momentarily today, we ought to get our eyes off of our problems and get our eyes on a God who is seated, and He's seated on the throne. Now, there are kings who sit on thrones. There are presidents who've been in the highest office of the United States of America. And all they've done is worry. Can they get a certain bill passed? Or some have worried, can I get reelected? Well, every president should worry about that. That doesn't minimize who they are, but they worry. But not our God. He doesn't know what it is to experience worry. Sometimes you and I can be overcome with worry, and that's all because we're looking at our problems. And we're not looking up, sitting with God, who's just sitting on post, sitting in His absolute, complete, divine power. There's no challenge to God's throne. Nobody is an equal to God. Beside Him, there is none other. There is. Go ask Pharaoh in Egypt, who served in the greatest empire of the known world, the first greatest leader of all after Nimrod. And there is Pharaoh. How did his throne end? It ended by him burping bubbles at the bottom of the Red Sea because he took on God who sits on the throne and he doesn't worry. Ask God how nervous he got when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, said, you know, God, I'll just rob your house and I'll take your people with me. Ask God what he thought. I think God already had a little chuckle. Because the Bible says that God drove him mad, and for 7 days, King Nebuchadnezzar, he ate grass like a beast, and at the end of his salad diet, he looks up into heaven, and he said, I now know that there is a God in glory, and He's the God of Israel. It doesn't matter who denies or questions the existence of your God. He sits on the throne. He's not nervous about anything. All you and I need to do is look to Him. We keep with our problems. We nurture our problems. We cherish our little problems. And all we do is pamper our little hurts and pains. And we stay like that until somebody says, why don't you look up to a God who's not wearing? You and I can be spellbound with nervousness. You and I can be juxtaposed with nervous tensions in our stomach, but never God. He's just waiting for somebody to look up to Him. He's sitting, Isaiah said, on a throne like no other throne. You see, Isaiah's position is different from God. It's as different as it can be. Isaiah is in the world, an cursed earth with problems. And he gets through, like you and I, one problem, and then there's another. But not God. Not God. That's why we need to look beyond our problems. We need to look beyond ourselves. And we need to look up. For there is a holy God who has an answer, who is the answer for every soul in this place. Look up! Look up! And then Isaiah said, His train fills the temple. My wife has a little train set that she got when she was a little girl. Now, there's one thing I can't touch in my house. And that's that little train set. One Christmas, we've been married about 3 years. One Christmas, I thought I'd surprise her. And I thought, I'm going to set her little train track up, put her little train. And I was lucky. I had just gotten it down when she came in from work because I had a lot of calls that day. And I'll tell you something. She came in the door and I'm holding her little train set. She said, what on earth are you doing? I said, baby, you're going to love me so much, I'm going to put your train track up. She said, oh, no, you're not. She said, have you ever had a train set? I said, no, we were too poor. I never got one. I said, the only train I saw was that one 2 blocks down below my little Milltown house just come by. It's a real train. She said, that's right. And that thing is old, it's fragile, and you will tear it all to pieces. Put my train set down. Now that's all I know about a train. It's a locomotive. You get toy trains. They're big giant trains. They're steam engines. They're massive locomotives. They're trains. But this train is something different. This train is the great robe of a king. The Bible said it's train. It's train. Not a little locomotive. His great garment. His great garment. And his great garment is this. His great garment is that robe that he wears. And in the ancient world, when a king went out to battle, which most ancient kings had to do, they had to go out, and when their nation defeated another nation, he would take the robe off that king, he would cut the bottom part off where it had the little frills of it, and he would have it sewn before he got back into his capital city, sewn on the end of his robe. That he would come right, the conquering king would come right into his town, and people would be lining the streets, just shouting the joys of national pride. And that king would step down out of his chariot, and not only would he have his robe, there'd be the lining of the end of the robe of the king he just defeated. And the nation would just go wild and cheering him that he was the king that could defeat another king. Now, our King, Jesus Christ, he didn't just have one or two of those little tied-on, sewed-on appendages to his robe. Oh no, our King, our God, he's defeated every nation in the world. He's above all the earth, the Bible says, in such that his train, when he comes into the temple, his train's so long, they have to have pullers. And the servants, and they'll pull his train in. He's defeated every army of the universe. He has conquered even the last enemy, Satan, sin, and death. And his train is so long, it has filled the entire temple. And Isaiah said, look up there. Look what I see as I'm looking up. I see a God. There's no challenge to his authority. There's no one who can bring any kind of threat to his power. He's the Lord our God. And Isaiah said, I'm glad I see him. Look up! Look up! His train this morning fills the entire sanctuary of St. Mark. God has no one who can defeat him. And he's the only one who can defeat your problems this morning. Get your eyes off your problems. Look up! Look up! Look up! And as Isaiah looked up, here's what he heard. He heard the greatest call and cacophony of voices. They gave that tripartite blessing. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord our God. When they cried out holy 3 times, they only do it one other time in the universe of history that's chronicled and recorded. It's over in Revelation chapter 4 and verse 8. One time in the Old Testament, one time in the New Testament. It is a call that God is so powerfully perfect and so filled with radiant love that you and I waste our time looking at our problems when all we got to do is look up. He's here. And he's here for every one of you. Now, when Isaiah looked up, God had to deal with his heart. God reached down, and Isaiah didn't circumvent this. He probably blushed as he wrote it. He said, one of those angelic beings, touch my tongue. In that vision, touch my tongue with the hot coal of the Lord. And I said, oh God, woe is me. Why? Isaiah said, I had to come back and confess my sins. All I've done is waste my time looking at my handful of problems when I could have been looking up to a holy God who loves me, who rules over the power of the universe. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world. Stand with me. In his hands He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Slip out from your place and let's join around the altar and look up. Come on. He's got you and me, sister, in his hands. He's got you and me, sister.